This is Coach John Thompson. He's the head men's basketball coach at North Carolina Wesleyan College. It was actually his idea to have this topic, so it'll be easy for him to set the table for us. He has been extremely busy. He just finished his 25th season as the head coach at North Carolina Wesleyan College. 20 years he was the athletic director during that time. He's already in the school's Hall of Fame. He's the winningest coach in school history, closing in on 400 wins. He's won 8 championships, conference titles, 4 Conference Coach of the Year awards. Within his conference, the USA Conference, he's been the president at one point in time. He's been the chairman of the Basketball Coaches Committee. Right now, he's a member of the NABC Congress. He's also served 4 years to the NCAA Men's Basketball Rules Committee. Probably the biggest coach's honor for him is he served as a court coach back in summer of 2012 for the USA Basketball's junior national team with a bunch of elite coaches. Performed and coached in the U18 training camp at the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs and still does a lot of stuff with USA Basketball. So it's all you, Coach.
Richie, thanks so much, and appreciate you guys having me. I'm going to try to squeeze kind of 4 different topics in here very quickly. First thing I want to start off with is throwing out a name, John McClendon. I don't know how old all of our 85 coaches are, but if you don't know who John McClendon is, your first homework assignment when you get off is to Google Coach McClendon. He's a name in my mind, along with Henry Iba and John Wooden and Dean Smith and Coach K and many others that we should all know as basketball coaches. Coach McClendon used to ask his team 4 questions. Who are you? What are you? Why are you here on earth? And where are you going? And I add a 5th one to that on where are you going? How are you going to get there? Coach McClendon used to ask those 4 questions of his team. We ask those questions of our team here at North Carolina Wesleyan. And I would suggest that we all as coaches ask ourselves those questions. I think that they're really important in what we do with our players on a daily basis. So using that as a starting point, I think there are lots of questions that we're asking them. Why would you like to play with yourself? Why would you not like to play with yourself? How do you make your teammates better? How do you make our team better without the ball in your hands? Do you want to get better? Do you want help in getting better? How good of a listener are you? Those are all questions that are really important in a variety of ways. Number one, it helps you kind of get inside the head of players. Number 2, it's a place where you can continue to build relationships, and those questions and the answers, and then kind of the follow-up conversations help to build the relationships that we all have. And then I think from a selfish standpoint, if you ever get to a point in practice, during the season, whatever, if a player is not being particularly coachable or they aren't receptive to some help that you're trying to provide, then I think it's a great way, because I think most players would say, if you ask them, do you want to get better? I think most every player would say yes. I think if you say, do you want help in getting better? I think most every player would. So if you ever run into a point where they're bucking that at all, or you get an eye roll or a shoulder shrug or whatever, then I think you can always refer back and say, well, I thought that you wanted help in getting better. So it gives you some ammunition to be able to use at a later date. I think asking them, why do they play basketball? I think that's an important question. A lot of guys saying, but I'm not really sure that they all do. I think some guys play it because they like the gear. I think some guys play it because, well, they happen to be tall. There are lots of reasons why guys gravitate to it. But do they love the game? Love to learn? Do they love the process? Do they love to work? I think the more you can find out from guys, the better you understand the guys that you're coaching, and the easier it becomes then to coach them. So I encourage you just to take this list, and then obviously there's a much longer list that I could throw out there to you. But What are the questions that are important to you based on your program's values, your program's standards, your non-negotiables, all the things, the values that you have and that you want to develop? What are the questions that are important to you? And then use that as a way to build the relationships and to provide yourself a path to coaching those guys. Then as phase 2 of this, I want to talk about keys to your season. I think as you prepare for any season, looking at, what are going to be the keys for us to get where we want to go? What's realistic for us, and how do we get there? What are the keys? Last year for us, a couple of the keys that we thought were really important to us. Number one was our overall team maturity. We weren't sure. We had graduated 6 seniors in 2019, and our overall team maturity, both on and off the floor, we thought was going to be really key to our season. We had 2 players that we thought their development, not only as basketball players, but as people, their development was going to be really key to what happened. And those guys kind of went in 2 different directions. One of the 2 really developed and matured and had a very good season. The other guy did not. And it impacted us to a certain degree. So, what are the keys within the team? Then what are your strengths? What are areas you need to improve on? What are things that you think maybe we're just okay in, kind of fit in between the strengths and the areas of improvement? And I hate to use the word weaknesses, so I use areas. And then what are any other thoughts that you have based on, statistical information from the year before, areas where maybe, you gave up too many transitions, or we weren't great against zone defense, whatever. And then also, what about role changes? Players who you are anticipating who are going to have to step from a complementary role into a much more prominent role. Somebody who may have to move from a backup into a starter's role, or somebody who didn't play much, but now you may have to count on as a sub. So, what are the role changes that are going to affect your team? So I think evaluating all of those areas and then how are you going to address them is very important as you prepare for a season. And then shifting to skill development, and I know that recently you talked about skill development, but I just want to throw a couple of things out. I think for us, skill development, there's, in the NBA, it's gotten to the point now where they may have a staff of 10 guys who are in charge of skill development that aren't actually coaching the team. And for all of us, we have guys who go home and they work out with skills trainers and, do a lot of things. But for us, I really like to focus on some things that I think some places may be overlooked. We think that passing and catching are really important. And some things as simple as in the catching process, catching with 2 eyes and 2 hands, having your fingers up on the catch, showing a target, calling for the ball, anticipating a bad pass or a deflected pass. All of those types of things should be emphasized. Footwork is really important for us. And so we drill footwork daily. And cutting and getting open are areas that I think have to be developed and may be missed in some skill development that goes on. For us, we talk with our team, and we'll repeat this phrase. We may be doing a shooting drill. 3-man 2's done that before. I rebound and hit the open man, and then I space, and the next guy who's rebounded his shot's kicking it out. We say that every drill is a passing drill. Every drill is a footwork drill. And so while 3-man 2-ball shooting may be considered a shooting drill, every pass to be a good one. We want every catch to be a good one. We want them calling for the ball every time, showing a target every time. And if now we here are we want to develop both feet. There's some coaches who are permanent pivot foot guys, and that's great. And there have been a lot of really successful coaches who go that way. We like to be able to pivot and use either foot. And depending on where we are on the floor and how we're receiving the ball, that will impact what we do. But whatever our footwork is, we want to pivot, catch, and face, and do it the right way every time. And so, again, our coaches will say during the course of 3-man 2-ball shooting, every drill is a passing drill. Every drill is a footwork drill. And so we're emphasizing not only a good shot and a good follow through and hopefully making some shots along the way, but we are emphasizing that every pass is important. Every time we catch, how are our feet coordinating with the rest of what's going on? So those things are really important to us. And then the fourth piece of what I wanted to throw out for you guys to consider today is changing sides of the floor offensively. You'll hear a lot of people talk about that, getting to the second, third side, whatever. You guys, some of you heard Nigel Thomas on earlier. Nigel was my assistant for 5 years, and really fortunate to have him with us for that long. And I've had some great assistants, Michael Mosley, who's with me now, Garrett Dorfman, who just finished his first year, and Justin Griffith, a former player of mine who graduated in 2012, has just come on our staff. And so these stats have all been accumulated by all of those guys. I can't take credit for that. I'm not smart enough to make it happen. But we analyze every 5-on-5 possession for the last 2 years. This is not transition. This is half court 5-on-5. And I can tell you that teams fast break against us at a much higher rate when we shoot on the first side as opposed to the second, third, and more sides. We draw more fouls on the opposing defense when we get it to the second, third, and fourth side. We offensive rebound at a higher rate when we get it to the third and fourth side. We shoot more free throws when we get to the second, third, and fourth side. And our shooting percentages, we were a better shooting team in 2018-19 than we were in 1920. But in both those years combined, our shooting percentage on the first side is 38% and below. Our shooting percentage second side in 2019 was 55%. This past season, it was 45%. And in both years combined, when we get to the third side or more, we're well above 50%. And so I'm throwing all of that out there to say, not only do we shoot it better, we rebound it better, we get fouled more, we get to the free throw line more, and opponents do not fast break against us nearly as well when we get the ball to the second, third, and fourth side. So I'm a big advocate. I like transition. Nobody's going to accuse us of playing slowly. I think we averaged 83 points a game this past season. I don't think anybody has ever considered us a slow down or a walk it up team. But in the half court, I am becoming more and more of an advocate of getting ball reversal and getting to multiple sides.
You talked about defining roles. Can you talk to these guys about going down the line? I was fortunate enough to be involved in a lot of those going down the line meetings. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I actually wrote myself a note when Caleb Kimbrough was talking about roles. I almost jumped in then, but so we all meet with our players and talk with them, and whether it's in a scheduled meeting in the office or sidebars or one-on-ones after practice or whatever. But I will say I got from Pete Carrill, great Hall of Fame coach from Princeton and the NBA. And going down the line is simply finding a time. Typically, we would do it after a practice. We might do it. I wouldn't do it before practice because for some guys, there might be a little fallout, but could be a meeting in a classroom or in the locker room, but typically it's going to be after practice. And we literally have everybody there, and we go down the line, and we may say, Nigel, great practice. If you keep playing the way you're playing, I'm not going to be able to keep you off the floor. Richie, listen, if you keep turning the ball over at the rate you're turning it over, you will never play. And we'll literally go down the line and tell everybody kind of where they are, what expectations they're meeting, what they're not meeting, what we like about what they're doing. We try to make it as positive as we can, but we make it as honest as we can. And what we find is that then there's no ability to misinterpret that. If you have a private meeting in the office and then the kid goes into the locker room and coach said whatever. Well, if you do it with everybody sitting there, and I've just told Richie, you're a really good player and you can do these things, but if you keep turning it over at the rate you're turning it over, you won't play. Well, then if he goes into the locker room and he's mumbling and grumbling, coach said I'd never play. Well, hopefully Nigel or one of his other teammates will say, no, that's not what he said. What he said was, if you keep turning it over, you won't play. And usually we have guys who will also follow up with, and you do turn that damn thing over a lot. So going down the line has been great for us. Even guys who sometimes maybe feel like they get hammered a little bit, they definitely, in front of their teammates, it can be tough sometimes. But I think those guys are also the ones who come back and say, hey, coach, that was really good for me. And they usually can make progress.
The other question I had related to your analytics regarding your half-court stuff, talking about percentages of success rates based on rotation of the ball or first pass, second pass, etc. Do you track that information for your defensive side, so the opponent's success rates on your defense?
That's a great question, and the answer is no. We haven't at this point. One question that came up in our small group was, did we do that in game? And we don't. This is something we've done at the end of the season. We haven't, in all honesty, had the manpower, managers and so forth, to track it in game, so that we'd say, at halftime, we could go in and say, look, we shoot too many first side shots or whatever. We're just doing that really by feel. So those are statistics that we've garnered via video post-season. But we have not done it defensively, but that's a great question. And now you've given my assistants a new project.
Hey, Coach, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What's your advice for balancing your coaching life and your personal life? I know a lot of coaches that get really into basketball, and it's almost their personal life or their family life kind of gets put to the side. I've met lots of coaches who are basically divorced now because they put so much into it, and they regret it essentially. What advice do you have for that?
Well, my advice is that family's first.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think as a guy is single and in the dating mode or whatever, obviously I think finding the right spouse is really important. Hoping, now my wife, I have been married for 27 years, 28 years, and I've been a head coach for 25. She still always assures me that she understands, she gets it, she understands. I'm not really sure she does after 28 years. I'm still not sure that she really fully gets everything that we do and why we do it the way we do it. But having someone who is supportive is really important. And then along come kids. I have 3 boys. who have all been involved in sports in one way or another, 2 soccer players and 1 basketball player. But like, I only get 1 shot with those guys. And so I certainly am not saying I've done everything right, because I'm sure that I have not. But you got to be able to balance it, and you've got to make sure that they know, like, my 2 youngest sons are twins. They're going to be high school seniors. One is the basketball player, the other one's a soccer player. And so the basketball player is here a lot. Like, he's in the gym working out as we speak. And by nature of the game, like, I'm with him more than I am my soccer playing twin. And so I have to make time. Just the other day, I said, hey, let's go to lunch. And, we went and got a sandwich at Jersey Mike's and took it out and ate it. And, like, I just needed to spend time with him. And I have to work at that a little bit harder than I do. My basketball guy will be around more just because of the game. But I would just say you have to make sure that you make time. There are times where you have to put the phone down, spending time talking to them. You have to make it a priority. And I'm bad. I mean, I'm, like somebody said earlier, they try to be a sponge. That's me. Like, when I'm not doing this, then I'm on a phone with a coach, or, I'm watching video, or, then I go home and I watch, the Lakers Philadelphia series from 1982 on NBA TV or something, or I'm reading. And that's all good. And we're all trying to get better, but you've got to make time for family.
What's up, Coach? I don't know if you remember, but I met you when you spoke at the USA Basketball Coaches Clinic in September. So
Yes.
I just kind of wanted to ask a question along those lines. Like, I know you talked about reading and watching film, but like, what kind of other things are you doing to constantly get better as a head coach?
Probably the biggest thing I'm finding other coaches to build relationships with and to pick their brain. Like, through a Zoom call that I was on, I got connected to really, really outstanding retired coach. And I reached out and said, hey, I'd love to talk to you some more. Can I give you a call? And he gave me a cell number to call me anytime. And the first conversation was 2 hours. He was very gracious with his time. There are a lot of great guys in this profession. I still like to read, but really, I think talking to coaches. And so this, like what Richie's doing, is really good with the small groups where you really can interact and converse. And then, as I say, just, getting guys on the phone and talking to them. I actually earlier today was texting with another retired coach, actually, who was my predecessor here at North Carolina Wesleyan. It was really great to me as I took over here. And I'm gonna get on with him soon. And I think really just kind of trade ideas and pick other people's brains. And that's, to me, it has been the best thing that I've done.
Hey, you're going down the line thing with your players. How often do you do that?
I would say we do that 4 times a year.
Okay.
Probably the first time we do it is probably a week or so before we open up. And then we probably do it, maybe right before Christmas break, early January, and maybe late in the season, 3 to 4 times a year.
Okay. I mean, I think it's healthy. I really do, because you get it out in the open. Because when you talk to kids privately, it's not so. But when they're all there in front of you, it's a little give and take, and I think that's healthy for your team.
Do you do anything specific, whether it's mentally or physically, teaching toughness and showing that tough love to guys?
Well, I think that in some ways, like I said, every drill is a passing drill. Every drill is a footwork drill. I think to some degree, every drill is a toughness drill. If you haven't read the article that Jay Billis wrote, and this preceded his book. He's got a book on toughness which expands upon it, but I really think the article that he wrote for ESPN breaks down toughness, in my opinion, as well as it can be broken down, certainly as well as anything I've ever seen. And so, just in short, like, toughness is about helping a teammate when you have the opportunity. Toughness is about setting a good screen every time. Toughness is about blocking out every time a shot goes up. And so those are the approaches that we take to toughness. And so holding guys accountable, making drills competitive, and being honest with guys and say, like, you had a chance to rotate in there and take a charge and you didn't do it. And then whether you show it to them on film or whatever, and then, okay, the next time, do they do it? Okay, well, this is habitual and it's going to affect your ability to play, help out your team, whatever. But I think really pointing out that doing all the little things, being consistent, being accountable, being responsible, those are the things that eventually make up being tough. And, flexing and staring somebody down, that's not being tough, in my opinion. But it is something that we discuss. It is like our guys, we give them a copy every year of the Jay Billis article. And then we actually will assign guys sections. There's probably, and I don't know what the number is, but I'm going to say 30 or 34 different sections of that with maybe a paragraph for each. And so we'll give a player 2 sections of that they have to present to the team. I would say, and every coach is different, and that's okay too. You have to be yourself. You can't try to be John Calipari or Phil Jackson or whomever. You need to be yourself. But I think that I have found with officials and with players, they're going to respond a lot better if you talk to them in a respectful way. What I will say too is very often I will find an opportunity. I will create an opportunity to light into my best player, to set the tone that, for a freshman or for somebody who's a little bit down the line, like, hey, if he's getting on that guy that way, then anybody's fair game. So I will tell you, I try to do that the first practice or 2. I will look for something, and sometimes I'll even set it up. I may even tell a guy, because he's such a good, not just player, but such a good player for our program, such a good person, that, like, look, I'm searching for something, but I am going to find something. Look, I'm going to let you have it. And you need to handle this the way that you always would, the way that I know you would, because you're going to set the example for every other player. So I'll orchestrate that. Very appreciative of your invitation to have me on, and honored to be able to share some ideas. And hopefully, if anybody in that group got something out of it, then I'm thrilled, and I can tell you I got a lot out of it myself.